And we are kicking things off in the Lone Star State, a pivotal game for the conference-leading Horned Frogs and the tied for second Longhorns. There's been few bumps in TCU's 9-0 start to the season and march to number 4 in the playoff rankings, but Texas trying to throw them off course in one of the most exciting conference races. Let's bring in our experts on this matchup, Jeremy Clark and Taylor Estes. Guys, slow starts have been an issue for both teams. In fact, the playoff committee even admitted that's why they ranked TCU so low in their first rankings. But outside any playoff implications here, why is it so important for these teams to start fast on Saturday? And Jeremy, we'll start with you.
Well, if you look at it, Grace, TCU has done pretty bad starting off games. If you look at the Oklahoma State game, they fell behind 24-7. Same thing against Kansas State, fell behind 28-10. This is a team this week going against Texas. Texas starts pretty strong. They went up to Oklahoma State, started strong, but didn't finish strong. They went up last week to Kansas State, started strong again, and were able to hold on in the end to get that win over Kansas State. So I think it's very important for TCU to get out rolling on offense first. They've got to score points. And when I say scoring points, I don't mean field goals. They got to get out there and score touchdowns. It took them 9 possessions last week to score their first touchdown against Texas Tech. If they do that in Austin on Saturday, it's not going to be a pretty sight.
Yeah, and I will say for Texas on the flip side, they have the opposite problem. Texas starts off games pretty strong, and then they just fall off really in the second half of games. The Longhorns against Big 12 opponents have been outscored 57-84 in the second half of Big 12 conference games. Against Kansas State, only 3 points coming out of halftime, and against Oklahoma State, only 3 points coming out of halftime too. So this has been a consistent issue for Texas, and it's kind of the tale of two halves for both teams, it seems, but they have the opposite problem. No doubt about it. At this point, Texas is who they are. They start games off strong, then they kind of let the lead go, and they're not going to be able to do this against this TCU team that, is one of the top teams in scoring in all of college football.
Well, speaking of scoring, TCU launched a social media effort this week for Max Duggan's Heisman campaign, but the offense wasn't nearly as explosive after wide receiver Quentin Johnston left the game early last week. Taylor, regardless of his status, what kind of challenge does the Frogs offense present?
I think that it presents a major challenge. The numbers say it itself. TCU's, I believe, number 3 in the country in scoring offense. And Max Duggan is a guy that can beat you with his arms and his legs. That's what Steve Sarkisian has said. Texas has had a little bit more issues against mobile quarterbacks. But I think, regardless of whatever Quentin Johnston's status is going to be, the Longhorns are going to have to be, looking out for Kendre Miller, the running back at TCU. He's been a guy with over 1,000 yards rushing. The Texas run defense really has been pretty solid all season long. They're definitely going to need to be, and kind of just really get after Max Duggan early and often, get him off of his game, and make sure to always look out for Miller too, because that's a guy that can beat you in the open field.
Kendre Miller is a great running back. He's gone over 1,000 yards. He obviously is the first running back at TCU to rush for over 1,000 yards since 2016. But if they don't have Quentin Johnston, it does change the complex of the offense. Last week against Texas Tech, he played one series. Once he went out, they struggled throwing the football. Max Duggan threw for just over 200 passing yards, and completed only 12 of 23 passes. Quentin Johnston is his go-to receiver. If he doesn't have him out there, it's going to be a tough challenge for the offense. He does have receivers like Tay Barber, Darius Davis. Darius Davis is an explosive playmaker at receiver and in the return game. But if you don't have arguably the top receiver in the Big 12 and perhaps even the nation to throw the football to, that's going to be a big challenge for that offense to get the ball rolling.
Flip side of the ball here, plenty to talk about with Quinn Ewers and this Texas offense. But first, Jeremy, I want to ask you, with veteran TCU linebacker D. Winters missing the first half, how might Bijan Robinson in Texas take advantage of that matchup?
Well, you're talking about the top running back in the Big 12. Bijan Robinson is a guy that can get big yardage on the ground. I mean, last year, if you look at that matchup in Fort Worth, he had 35 carries in that game, a game Texas won 32-27. And it's not just Bijan Robinson, it's Roschon Johnson. It's those two running backs, that 1-2 punch that they got. But not having D. Winters out there, you're missing the most knowledgeable linebacker on TCU's roster. You don't have a guy that is going to go sideline to sideline and make plays. He had 2 sacks last week against Texas Tech in the first half, ended up with 7 tackles. with D Winters out, look for former 4-star Shad Banks to get that playing time at linebacker. He came in the second half, had 5 tackles and 1 sack against Texas Tech. But yeah, not having D Winters out there, you're talking about a senior leader and a guy that is one of the top linebackers, of course, in the Big 12.
Yeah, and that definitely plays to Texas' advantage, especially with the 1-2 punch of Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. Bijan Robinson has averaged over 100 yards in the last 7 games that he has played in. He's coming off of a performance where he had 209 yards rushing. And as Jeremy mentioned, last year on the road at Texas Tech, the reason why Texas was able to win that game was they relied on Bijan Robinson. He's a guy that Steve Sarkisian has said that he trusts the most to put the ball in his hands when the games are on the line. When Bijan Robinson has more than 30 carries in a game, Texas has won those games. So I think you're going to see a very heavy ground attack led by Bijan Robinson, who is also trying to make a stake for himself in the Heisman race. He already has 1,129 yards rushing so far this season, 12 touchdowns. With all eyes of college football on this game, I think that this could be a prime opportunity for Bijan Robinson to, solidify his name in the Heisman race with College Game Day being there. This being in prime time on ABC, there's just a lot of attention on this game, and he has a chance to really make a claim there. But there's no doubt that, Roschon Johnson also is a guy that can really beat you with his legs too. Texas arguably has one of the best 1-2 punches in college football between those duos. So I expect to see a lot of reps from both Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, and really trying to, add the score, especially in the first half with D Winters being out of that game.
All right, Jeremy and Taylor, appreciate your time. And for more coverage on TCU and Texas, check out Horned Frog Blitz and Horns 24/7.